Charter Trustees, officers, please be upstanding for the Worshipful Mayor of Poole and the Sheriff of Poole.
I would like to welcome Charter Trustees, the press and members of the public to this meeting of the Poole Charter Trustees. In order to ensure this meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules for speaking. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand physically to indicate. Where there appears to be consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out by a show of hands. Charter Trustees are advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for live and on-demand viewing via the Council's YouTube page. Before we start the business on the agenda, as you know, the Charter Trustees is a non-political body with the primary objective being to maintain and promote the historic and ceremonial traditions of Poole. I'm keen that we all work together to maintain this objective. If we move to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Could the clerk please confirm any apologies for absence received from trustees?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've received apologies from the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pete Miles, Councillor Andy Hadley, Councillor John Beasley, Councillor Vanessa Ricketts and Councillor Oliver Walters.
Are there any more apologies? Okay, yeah, good point.
I did say Councillor Vanessa Ricketts. I think we can withdraw
Yes.
this. I don't think she is a Charter Trustee. Was that different? No, she's not. Good spot.
Councillor Burton?
Sorry, can we use the mic?
Councillor Burton?
Yes, apologies for Councillor V. Slade and Councillor P. Slade.
Right, where have we got to?
Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Emily Harman.
Thank you, Sandra. Anybody, any more? Okay, we'll just wait a moment for Sue, Councillor Aikenhead. Did you hear that? Could you speak up a bit?
Peter Cooper, please record his apologies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Agenda item 2. Councillor Lepadovin.
I'm not sure whether Councillor Millie Earle has been mentioned, but she has also sent her apologies.
Okay, good. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Clerk, can you please report on any declarations of interest received?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None have been received to date, but if members do feel they might have a conflict of interest, if they could read the flowchart in the agenda and follow that, that'd be very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meetings. We will now take item 3 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meetings held on 29th of January and 13th of May 2025. Are those agreed as a true record? Do I have consensus on that? Yes, that is agreed. Agenda item 4, Charter Mayor's report. Okay. Firstly, I'd like to thank the clerk for his years of service, because this will be your last meeting, as I understand it. So thank you very much. And would you like to say anything?
Just, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just to thank Charter Trustees for the work. It is an interesting aspect of the work, and it brings the history of Poole to life. I think without the Charter Trustees, there would be something missing. I know we've got a community governance review at the moment, but that may give a different outcome. But the Charter Trustees have been a valuable part of keeping the history of Poole alive. So thank you for the opportunity to be the clerk, the first clerk for the 6.5 years. Thank you.
I'll move on to what I've been doing. I've worked out I've been to 22 events since mayor making. It has been actually an amazing 6 weeks or so. It's only when you become mayor, I think, that you realise the full variety of events that the mayor attends. So some of the highlights, I think, were in terms of formal occasions. There was a wonderful service in relation to Operation Dynamo at the old lifeboat station, where Poole Borough bands were playing, and it was just a perfect remembrance. There was also a very well-organised and solemn service in relation to members of the forces lost in the Falklands, in Falkland Square. Last week I set off a fun run at Poole Grammar and then ran the fun run in like 25 degrees of heat and almost collapsed afterwards. And that evening I went to visit the care leavers and asylum seekers football team that, well, I was going to say that the council sponsor, but I'm not absolutely certain that is true. That certainly council workers are heavily involved in making that happen. And it was really interesting and frightening to hear some of the journeys of those asylum seekers, you know, children who travelled from, you know, I'm thinking of one particular young man whose father was a politician. He's travelled as a 15-year-old all the way from Afghanistan to here with some pretty dreadful experiences. He has no contact with his family, has no idea whether his father's still alive, but is, you know, was very positive and, you know, is taking advantage of what we have to offer here to move his life forward. Yes, I mean, there have been many other events, including opening an art exhibition at the Lighthouse. There's Dorset Mellor as well this weekend, which to my shame, I admit I'd never been to before, even though it was in Poole Park. I never really knew about it, but that's a wonderful place, particularly if you like Indian food, because there were about 15 different stalls of serving food from different areas of India and adjacent Asian countries, and a fashion show and music. It was wonderful. So, yeah, it's been a very good 6 weeks. If I move on to agenda item 5 now, report of the Poole Civic Working Group. We will now take item 5 on the agenda. Well, sorry, I'm reading the title and then repeating it. Could the Sheriff, Councillor Karen Rampton, please introduce the report and move the recommendations?
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It does say in the script that I will have a supporting speech. I didn't read that bit, so I haven't got one. So just going through this briefly, this is the first time that I chaired the meeting. We decided to hold the meeting. We were looking for a venue in Poole. Thought that was more appropriate than having a venue in Bournemouth. And we used Northmead House, which is absolutely fine. There's plenty of parking there, worked really well. Once we got through the door, that is. So a few little niggles. But I do believe there's another service unit going to be moving in there shortly. So whether we'll be able to use that in future is something we'll have to to explore. Hi, Tony. But we had a really good meeting, didn't we, the last one, a really long debate on it, and we did reach some recommendations to officers to execute, and one of those is about the use of the robing room here, which I don't know if Mr Mayor is going to speak on it or if he wants me to say anything.
I think you should finish that.
Yeah, finish that one. So we discussed at the working group whether we could utilise some of the furniture from the Poole Civic. So we're thinking about the throne. I think Mark should have a throne. Even if he doesn't sit in it every time, I think it would be really nice to have some of that furniture. And in the robing room here, whether we have it full-time, which I know Mr Mayor doesn't want, whether it's just an ad hoc basis, there's a scruffy, horrible old table there. I can't remember what was on the stage at Poole Civic Centre, but there was some sort of desk, heavy desk or table. So anyway, we are going to this week, we're going to measure up some of the furniture and have a look and see what else could be used. We're going to measure up the spaces on the wall. Lovely high ceilings in there, as in here, so we can probably get some of quite a few of the boards up there and displayed, which would be really great. And take a look at the other assets and regalia and see what else could be used in there. But we're still to thrash out the issue about how and when we use the room. That is ongoing. Just stepping back a little bit, actually, I just wanted to mention item 3 about the group agreeing to meet 6 to 8 weeks before each Charter Trustees meeting, and where necessary will meet more regularly. So there have been more regular meetings every 3 weeks to date, and I personally feel that we shouldn't let it go back to 6 to 8 weeks, that there's still some unresolved items, so that we should probably meet on a monthly basis until those are resolved. So that's something that we'll be speaking to officers about and trying to get some dates in the diary for those of you on the working group. So I'm just going to hand over to Mr Mayor, because he's going to take the item on the Trust Trustee Handbook and the SLA.
Yes, the handbook largely follows the standing orders and expands on various matters of protocol. I'm sure you've all read it and the amendments to it, but I'll just raise a couple of points. Firstly, and this is repeated from the standing orders, we had a challenge, with the officers and advisors about how, what we can do as an organisation and what we can't. And it was it involved many different meetings and hard discussion. And basically, we arrived at a position where the purpose of this organisation is essentially to protect the historic property and the traditions of the town. It can't spend money on community initiatives, etc., unless they're directly related to, the regalia or those traditions. And one of the boundary essentially fell on the beating of the bounds ceremony. That's ultimately, beating of bounds was deemed to be, an acceptable item of expenditure. And one of the things that I'd very much like to do, given we still have to wait and see what the result of the community governance process is, but it either will end up with a town council in Poole excluding Broadstone, or one on the former boundaries of Poole, roughly, so the borough of Poole. So what I would like to do is reconfirm the land bounds by a ceremony that we can involve the public in as well. And what I would propose to do is to essentially cycle the bound, starting at the quay, ending at the quay, and having an event on the quay, which is a public event that has activities for the public to do, and we can use to advertise the Charter Trustees. That's very early stages in planning, and the next stage is to speak to council officers as to the practicality and how we might manage the roads, etc. in doing that. Skipping through a few sections.
Come back on the regalia story.
Yes, there was quite a long discussion about reimbursement of expenses. Some trustees felt that we should have categories and limits as to what the civic offices should be able to claim. Other people felt that was too prescriptive and it should be essentially left to a case-by-case basis. Ultimately, we've decided that it's the budget signatory's role to determine whether an expense is valid, and that there's just a process in here whereby any claims are submitted to the budget signatories for approval. There was also some discussion about the order of precedence in relation to events when, technically the first person of the BCP area is the chairman of the council. In certain circumstances, especially where there is an event that is specific to Poole, most people would expect the mayor to be the primary person there, and essentially there's a statement which says that the chairman will respect the interests of the towns, and that there will be, amicable discussions as to how, if both the chairman and the mayor attends, that they'll sort it out between themselves, really. But it's important, I think, to have raised that, because there have been some concerns that the Mayor of Poole has been marginalised as a result of the creation of the chairman role. So I hand over to the Sheriff, who wants to say something else.
Yes, I'm just going to briefly mention the storage of regalia, because we agreed at the last Charter Trustee meeting that I would go and view the storage and see the progress that's been made in looking after our historic items. And I think the Mayor is coming along to that as well on Friday morning to look at that. So we will provide an update further, following that meeting. And then update to the Mayor and Sheriff boards, as I mentioned, depending on what we agree about the room, it would be great to get the updated Mayor and Sheriff boards done. I believe that Carolyn's been working very hard on arranging to get the names added, because they haven't been added for the last 10 years, is it?
It was before LGR, yes.
Before LGR, so anyway, a long time. So they absolutely need to be updated. And there are some bits, my wand, I love my wand, but I know it's very old, and maybe some people would like the fact that it looks a bit tired, but we are looking into the cost of having that re-gilted, and it might even be that the maces, that we look at doing those as well. And again, that is being done at the moment, so we'll come back to you once we know more about that. The community organisation database, I think the Mayor did email out Poole Charter Trustees about whether they knew of any groups that perhaps could be added. It's just to reiterate that, really. If you know of anyone, we've got some details of organisations, but if you can think of somebody, some organisation that you know in your ward that you think should be included, please do let the Mayor and officers know so that they can be included.
Can I just say something?
Yes, of course.
Just to stress, we don't have our own mailing list here, because we're a separate organisation from the council. I would like to do a number of regalia talks sessions where I invite specific parts of the community. For example, I think it would be good if we could invite, trustees of various community centres together in the same room so they can strengthen their contacts as well, do a bit of networking as well as view the regalia. But, we don't have a comprehensive list, and the council's lists provided so far, to me, are very limited. It seems that they're kept department by department, and there's no comprehensive list of organisations. We are really dependent on you as ward councillors in your other role, notifying us of the organisations in your wards that you think we should know about and potentially to invite to events. Sheriff?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And actually that brings me to the Mayor is quite keen that we hold a Sheriff's Day, and I don't think we have done that before. We're thinking about later on in the year. Lots of ideas kind of whizzing around, but basically I would like to see something that lets people of Poole see what we have, this regalia, open it up a bit more, and perhaps we can do something. Officers are probably going to look at me askance here, but perhaps at Scatman's Court, or even at Poole Museum, which I'm not quite sure we've got a date for that reopening, but it would be really great to have some sort of public event, obviously with appropriate security, where we could have people in, the organisations that we have on our list, we should know them by then, and members of the public in to do that. So that's not for now.
Yeah, so I had, with Councillor Hadley, looked around Poole Museum yesterday, and certainly Scatman's Court is essentially finished, it seems. The upstairs area, there's so much space there, and it's being kept as a space for events. It could be a wonderful place to have events. Unfortunately, because they've missed several deadlines in terms of opening, they're not prepared to commit to bookings at the moment, but hopefully that will change in the next couple of months, and we'll be able to use that from October.
Anything else? Did you want to say on the common strategy?
The only thing, I would say something about the regalia. I don't know if you probably don't know that we have an oar mace, which is an oar, a paddle, an oar, yeah, which is the symbol. It represents the fact that the Mayor is the Admiral of Poole Port, the Admiral of the Port. And that's something I don't think we've made enough of. It's something that we can build events around. And actually, if you look in the coat of arms, you will see the oar there. And it's held up by the dragon, I think, the griffin. But the oar itself is from the 18th century, and it's designed to be worn on clothing, but it's not. I did wear it once, and then been told subsequently it's not really. I can see you couldn't use it a lot really. It's too valuable. So I'm suggesting that perhaps we consider having a replica or some new oar made that could be worn more regularly on the Mayor's clothing when doing things that are associated with the port and the harbour. In terms of comm strategy, we have been working with the council to try and expand the channels over which we communicate. Currently, we only put stories out on Facebook. We've been advised that we would get a bit more reach if we used LinkedIn and Instagram as well. That's, we're just trying to work out a way that we can efficiently do posts on that without taking enormous amounts of time away from the civic officers. And there was one other item that you wanted me to comment on, I think.
I think that was it, really. Done the columns.
Oh, it was the SLA, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we mentioned it.
Yeah, okay.
That's okay. Okay.
All right.
Right, so back to the recommendation. recommended Charter Trustees approve the proposed amendments to the Charter Trustee Handbook as set out in Appendix 1.
Okay. Is that seconded? Councillor, sorry, you have a question, Councillor? Yes.
Yes, it was just with regards to the use of the word chairman, whether that can be changed to chair, please. Sorry? We had a discussion in full council before.
If we could not have, if we could just not have a debate on the floor, please. Firstly, can I just roll back? Can we have a second first? Would you like to second?
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Councillor Rice. We were talking about chairman in the context of BCP Council chairman. So.
Yes, but she's only there. I know that she has, the current chair has a preference to be called chairman, but this is a long-term document, so it's not in relation to Leslie Dedman. It's in relation to a chair of the council. Which I think we had decided.
I defer to officers, but...
If I may, Mr. I seem to recall that we had a debate.
We did.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
A long debate.
I seem to recall that we had a debate at the full council some time ago, and I think that resolved to continue with the use of the word chairman for that post.
No. It was, well, my understanding was that we would use chair in general documentations, but if a person had a preference when they were in the position of chair to be called chairman or chairwoman or chair, then they made that decision for their own personal use. But in terms of general documents, my understanding was that we were going to switch to the automatic use of chair.
I'm happy to check that if that would help.
Yeah, well, I think clearly we should use the term that is generally used by the council to describe its own roles, which it's decided. So the question is the primary term used chair or chairman, and that's for the officers to go away and research, and then we should reflect that in the handbook.
Yeah, I'd be happy to write to all Charter Trustees to tell you what the outcome of that is, hopefully very soon. If you're happy to agree the changes, then we'll just put the appropriate term in there as formally agreed through BCP Council for that one.
Would anybody else like to speak on this item? Councillor Aikenhead.
Just to let you know, there's also a bit in it where it says the chairman of the civic working group, so you might want to consider whether to change that as well if you're going to, because you want it to be consistent, but particularly because that is not actually the chairman of the council, so that is in our we can decide, although you could always change that to say the sheriff, because it's the sheriff, isn't it? So but I just thought for consistency I'd just point out it.
I mean, this is something that either you have one view or another, or you don't care. I mean, it is. I personally prefer chair, but I think if we are able, can we just have a show of hands here to see whether those who want chair and those that want chairman, because this is a legitimate decision of the Charter Trustees. So.
Third choice, like people who don't care.
Well, I think I've seen that people that don't care won't mind which way we go. So, if we, So if can we have those that would prefer chair put their hands in the air, and those, sorry, them here as well. And those who would prefer not. Who would prefer chairman? Just one. Do you need to know the answer? No. Okay. Well, that's pretty conclusive then. Yeah, absolutely. We have don't care here. Okay. Any more questions that people wish to raise? No. We will now move to the vote. Is there a consensus? Yes, there looks like there is a consensus. This is the vote recommendations in the Sheriff's report. or the report of this Poole Civic Working Group to be accurate. So, yeah, that looks like we have consensus. The motion is carried. Addendum item 6, audit report. Mr. Fraser, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, trustees, you'll see the audit report set out in the papers. I won't go through it line by line. I will highlight that there are no matters of high priority identified, and where appropriate, the audit team's recommendations have been reviewed, accepted, and actioned to fullness or are in the process of being completed. Just one thing contrary to that, though, is line R9, which concerns the publication scheme. It's been a long-standing decision which we are not seeking to overturn, which is that we will not publish any details of assets to the public website, as there are concerns over the security of those assets and indeed the people holding or wearing them, including our good friend, the Mayor. In addition, though, the recommendation from the audit team was that we should publish all instances of expenditure that are over £100. However, that is deemed to be impractical and too resource intensive to implement at this time. But apart from that, the audit report is submitted for noting. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on this item? That's a no, I think. We will now move to the vote. Is there a consensus? Yep. Motion carried. We will now take item 7 on the agenda, budget outturn and... I don't actually know what that stands for. What's the A? Yes, AGAR, to be acronym to be explained.
Thank you,
Mr. Filmer, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And AGAR is the Annual Governance Accountability Return, and I'll refer to it as AGAR going forward because it's a bit of a mouthful. So the report first covers the outturn position for 24-25, which is set out in Appendix A, and the Charter Trustees underspent by just under 29,000. And that's primarily as a result of not carrying out civic events as planned when we set the budget, on the back of the legal advice that's been discussed previously at these meetings. But you will see some events and some grants did get carried out because they were committed or had already happened before that legal advice was received. So that underspend means that the drawdown of reserves that was to support the 24-25 budget has reduced. So we'd budgeted in 24-25 to draw down 67,000, and we're now drawing down 38,000. That leaves the reserve position at £98,269, which is around 55% of the total council tax precept that we take. And I looked back earlier, it's the first year since the inception of the Charter Trustees that we've reduced reserves. So every year since inception, reserves have gone up. This is the first year reserves have gone down. And the budget for 25-26 is on the premise of using £25,000 worth of reserves. So we should see another reduction this year as well. So moving on to Appendix B, this is the AGAR return, which is the statutory return that we have to submit by the end of the month. It's a document that pulls together the previous agenda item on the internal audit, which feeds into the annual governance return. And then it summarises the finances that I set out in Appendix A into the financial statement. And subject to approval tonight, that will then go online. We'll open up what's called a public inspection period, and then the AGAR will be externally audited. And lastly, off the previous item in terms of the internal audit recommendations, we're proposing to amend the financial regulations to increase the competitive review requirement from £100 to £500. So whenever we go out to spend £500, we then seek free quotes to ensure that that offers value for money. I'll stop there, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Councillor Andrews?
Thank you. I've just got a question. Obviously, we're carrying forward a large sum of money, nearly a six-figure sum, and carrying it forward. And obviously, there's this level of uncertainty as to what the future is in terms of local government in the old borough of Poole. You don't need to answer the question if you don't want to answer it now. You can perhaps send an email to all Charter Trustees, because we've only got about 1/3 of the people here. But if it is decided to create parish-stroke town councils for the old borough of Poole, 2 or even just 1, what happens to the money?
Yeah, Mr. Filmer.
For you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure I actually know quite. I haven't looked into it, but it's something I have been thinking about. Richard may be able to advise.
Jones?
So it would be classified as an asset of the Charter Trustees. This would be in the event of the Charter Trustees being abolished, so the whole of the area being parished. If there was a single town council being established, then the assets, including the funds, would be transferred in entirety. The issue is if there is more than one, for instance, so if the proposals as set out, Poole Town plus Broadstone, there would need to be a distribution of those costs. On the basis of that could be sliced in many ways. It could be per head capita, it could be per bandy property, it could be a much more detailed analysis of all the properties on the council tax. That would be an item to determine in the future.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. The clerk would like to add something.
No, just the emphasis on that only occurs if every property that's covered by the Charter Trusts is parished. If any properties are left and the Charter Trustees continue, then of course those assets would remain with the Charter Trust.
So just to, obviously the assets of the mayoralty also are in, the same would apply, wouldn't it? So in that situation, the mayoralty would not transfer to the town council. It would remain with BCP. That's what you're saying.
So I think technically in that circumstance, the Charter Trust would continue, but a town council for Poole could also be chaired by a mayor. So you could end up with a mayor of Poole and a mayor of Poole, and then we'd need to work out what happens with the assets. So I think at the moment they would stay with the Charter Trust unless the Charter Trust were wound up. There may be an accommodation or some sort of agreement. Just hope we don't get into complex territory.
So this is quite important, because if an area is left unparished, it is likely to be on the edge of Poole town centre, not on the edge of town centre, on the edge of the old borough, and for the mayoral assets to stay with that would be, it would be ridiculous, frankly. So that's something that trustees in their other hats as councillors need to bear in mind, perhaps when the discussions about community governance take place. The Sheriff, would you like to say something?
By the time we have everything re-guilted and we have the Sheriff's Day, there won't be much left anyway.
just these two.
Just call me Viv.
Is open to debate. Councillor Trent is indicating to us.
Yeah, Councillor Trent.
Yeah, I think there is actually, I think the Sheriff has sort of hit the nail on the head, really, that if there was a certainty that a town council would be created, then it may be that the last act of the Charter Trustees could be to do things like gilding the wand and doing things which need to be done to the civic assets, rather than work out where it gets transferred to, because we have a hell of a lot left over, and although I don't mind either way it happens, but in many respects, if there are things that are priorities to sort out that are to do with the history of the town and the civic traditions, then it may be that we might have to bring some work forward and make sure that we do actually utilise what's there in the best possible way. And if it doesn't happen, I think we've actually got to look at what we do anyway, because we do have an embarrassing surplus overall. I know that we are eating into the surplus cash, but at the same time it is a lot of money, and it does it does cause a problem, and I think the civic side of things is where we really ought to, looking after the regalia and the various assets we've got, ought to be top of the list for what we do.
Yes, I mean, as you've heard, Councillor Trent, both the Sheriff and I are very keen on making sure that the regalia is both in good condition and capable of using for the benefit of the people of Poole. So, yeah, hopefully we will live up to your expectations on that front. Are there any other questions? Councillor Aikenhead?
Yes, I just wanted to urge people to just take a step back in terms of, yes, we do have a good size of reserve. I find phrases like embarrassingly large and spend, things that we need to pull ourselves back from, because this is money that we have collected off of our taxpayers, our local residents. And I think it's really important that if we are going to spend it, we need to spend it on things that are really needed. And we should not be looking for excuses to spend it. Whatever happens to that money, it is still going to be within the area that we all represent at the moment. It's not going anywhere. The money's not going to disappear. We don't have to desperately spend it before it goes somewhere. Yes, it's true that slightly different people might be in charge of it. But I think that we have to respect that the people who are going to be in charge of that money, if it is handed over to parish and town councils, are people who are democratically elected, and we should have some trust for the fact that they will spend it on the right things that local residents want them to spend it on. There's been a lot of worry about how much it will cost to get town and parish councils. So if we do have them, I think that we need to bear that in mind before we start to spend all the money.
Councillor Aikenhead, I just remind you that you are here as a Charter Trustee and not a councillor, and therefore...
Thank you for that reminder.
And therefore, I think you are verging on political councillor business. So
thank you for that reminder. I just wanted to reply to the urges for us to spend the money before we get there. Okay. Thank you.
The Sheriff would like to respond to some of your comments.
Thank you, Councillor Aikenhead, for sharing your concerns. I was slightly tongue-in-cheek there. However, there is no doubt that there has been how can I put this politely? There has not been the upkeep that we would expect for the last few years on the assets and regalia for Poole, and such as the storage, such as the regilding, if that's necessary, such as the boards being updated. And those are things which, as Councillor Trent has said, those are things which should be and must be done. And I have no idea what they will cost, but there are very few people that are able to carry out this work. It's not going to be cheap, but it's not going to swallow up the whole of the budget. And I would love to comment further, but I'm conscious that I'm apolitical, so I won't at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I said when I was elected, one of my key, what I perceive to be my role here, is really to pass on the regalia and the organisation in the way that's fit for purpose for whoever takes over the role, whether it be somebody from this organisation or a future council. Say something else. The Sheriff wanted also to say something else.
This is not on the agenda, but I just wondered if we could perhaps have an update from officers on the civic team. And you've been going through some recruitment, and I wondered if you could let the Charter Trustees know how that's been going. Thank you.
And if I could ask also, what kind of effect is that having on the finances, if any, if at all? Is that all encompassed within our payment?
Okay, yes, so just to confirm, we have successfully employed 2 wholly new staff, and we have moved one of the 0 hours contractors who was helping us out when we were in dire straits to a permanent position. The outcome of that is that we have split the equivalent of 2 full-time hours full-time position hours across the 3 new people, and each will do a very slightly different amount of hours per week. But the total number is 2 people's jobs split over 3 to give us a little bit more resilience for availability.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to go away and review that just to see what the impact that has on the finances, be it lessened. I think it potentially would reduce the charge from the council to the Charter Trustee.
Okay, thank you.
It's also worth pointing out that those two vacancies that we've now filled with 3 people were to replace 1 member of staff who has left and 1 member of staff who is on long-term sickness and is not accruing any kind of salary.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No, we will now move to the vote. Is there a consensus? I keep saying a consensus, it's consensus. Yeah, it looks like it. Motion carried. Charter Trustees, that concludes the meeting. Thank you for your attendance.
Please be upstanding while the Civic Party depart.